Halo pemain, kembali bersama saya Kai. Dan kali ini saya mau nyoba game yang baru saja saya dapatkan, yaitu adalah Endzone A World Apart. Endzone ini adalah game city builder survival, jadi mungkin semacam Sim City gitu ya, cuman eh, eranya kayak era yang masih ada zombie atau setelahnya apokalips. Saya sendiri juga kurang tahu, tapi kayak ada radiasi dan lain-lain. Oke, jadi saya sendiri baru nyoba, baru lihat-lihat. Terus tadi untuk settingnya saya ganti jadi yang low. Soalnya tadi nyoba beberapa kali kayak nge-crash gitu. Nggak tahu, mungkin settingan grafiknya. Padahal tak ganti medium lah, tapi dia nge-crash. Well, mungkin dia terlalu canggih. Oke, langsung aja kita coba. Kita punya tutorial survival masker. Kita berhubung aku juga tidak pernah main, jadi aku tidak tahu gamenya kayak apa. Jadi kita akan coba tutorialnya bareng-bareng sambil kita pelajari gamenya ini mainnya kayak apa. Main tutorial longer interrelated tutorial bla 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 bla. Oke. Oh, ada tutorialnya sendiri-sendiri. Water, food, confidence, radiation. Kan ada radiasi. Jadi kayak kayak itu loh, apa? Fallout gitu-gitu loh. Apa sih istilahnya? Barter trading, expedition, research. Kayaknya banyak ya. Oke, kita coba aja tutorial yang pertama, kita main bareng. Endzone beberapa tutorial. Sambil kita belajar bareng supaya kita lebih jago dalam main. Oke, ini areanya ya. Ya, areanya memang kayak after apocalypse gitu ya. Oh, after apocalypse.
We finally left the end zone. Just look at this beautiful scenery. It's marvelous, even though it's a bit different from what we had pictured. We were able to secure a few basic resources and are storing them in our bus. I'm glad we prepared ourselves well for this kind of scenario, especially since our inventories in the end zone ran low. Don't forget that if you need additional information, you can look at our survival guide at any time.
Survival guide. Oke, jadi ini Arthur Chaukin. Ini kayaknya dia yang akan memandu kita. Jadi dia bilang ada survivor guide. Ini kayak helpnya gitu ya. Oke, semuanya dijelaskan di sini. Kayaknya akan makan waktu sekali kalau misalnya kita baca bareng-bareng. Jadi kayaknya nanti dijelaskan di tutorial sih. Ya, jadi ini buat kalau misalnya kita lupa aja gitu. Kayaknya. Kalau misalnya saya enggak inget, ya saya akan refer ke sini gitu. Mungkin kalau nganggur, nggak ada kerjaan, baca-baca ini. Musiknya terlalu keras nggak ya? Kayaknya sih enggak ya.
Well
Oke.
done.
Well done.
Everything you need to know should be right here.
Ini menunya banyak
I
sekali.
think the time has come for us to at last build ourselves a new home here.
Oke.
Before we can construct buildings at all, we have to assign the profession builder to several settlers so that they can take care of construction contracts. In general, it's your responsibility to decide which tasks are important and how our settlers are supposed to be distributed to attend to them.
Oke, kita perlu meng-assign profesi ke settler. Jadi nama orangnya settler dan kita perlu assign profesi. Ini assign profesi. Open the profession menu, assign settler. Builder. Oh, builder nih profesi. Oke, jadi mungkin beda kayak game-game yang pernah tak mainkan sebelumnya ya. Jadi ini kita cuma ngatur secara general aja, secara umum. Jadi misalnya kita ngatur satu buildernya 3, berarti dia akan otomatis
Your builders will be ready as soon as
menentukan.
construction contracts have been issued. It's time to start focusing on our key and most basic need, water.
Wata. Dia otomatis menentukan siapa yang jadi settlernya. Apa yang jadi buildernya. Jadi kita nggak perlu bingung. Oh begitu.
The first thing we ought to do is to establish a working water supply. So we'll move on to our first construction contract. Place and build a jetty by a lake in the vicinity of your town center.
Town center, oke, ini town center berarti ya. Water supply jetty, understood. Kita open building, oke. Ini profesi, ini building, jetty. Jetty ini apa nih? Wooden jetty enable settle to collect water, kayak dermaga gitu ya. Oke. Apa ini? Entrances yang hijau. Oh, blocking area require water. Oh gitu, oke. Rotate building, oke, bisa di rotate. Place and mode. Kayaknya perlu ditaruh di air ya. Ini daerah kita yang air cuman ini. Oke. Gerak. Oh, tahan klik kanan bisa untuk gerakan peta. Oke. Sekarang kita perlu collect air. Kita taruh di sini. Terus orangnya sendiri. Ini kah? Oh iya. Oh cuman butuh 2. Oke. Oh mereka mungkin kayak ngambil woodnya gitu ya. Ini wood, scrap, tools, radiation protection. Aku nggak ngerti apa ini. Food dan water. Ini apa? Declining population. Do not have enough house. Constant. Ini statistik populationnya. Ini adults yang bisa kerja ya. Adults can become active in profession, help to transfer resources. Oke. Kalau children help their family to transport food and water. Oke, ini list parent sama childrennya. Oh, bukan parent juga, adult sama children. Ini happiness. Oh bukan, confidence. Children, community building, average radiation, average health, knowledge.
Very good.
Oh, sudah
The
selesai
jetty
sampai.
was completed as planned. Now we have a place where we can collect water. There are other possibilities to gather water too, but the jetty is the simplest and most cost-effective method.
Great.
We can obtain and store water from different sources, like a jetty, rain collector, or well in the cistern. The cistern should always be in close proximity to a water source, so that our water carriers don't have to walk too far.
Close proximity to water source. Oke, jadi cistern. Ini jetty, rain collector sama apa? Ada beberapa cara buat dapatkan air. Oke, oh ini cistern. Cistern ini apa? Oh kayak water tower gitu ya. Oke, katanya kalau bisa jangan jauh-jauh supaya kolektornya nggak jauh-jauh juga. Tapi ya apa? Tempatnya jauh ya. Oh ini ada area entrance-nya. Kayak gini aja. Gini aja. Gimana sih? Aku nggak tahu water ini seberapa berguna. Jadi ini berhubung ini tutorial, kita coba-coba aja ya. Oke, enak juga ya. Jadi kita tinggal naruh, nanti yang buildernya otomatis mendatangi. Oke, kita tadi sampai mana? Rich food, number of different type of food currently being stored at the settlement. Oh ini maksudnya cuma satu gitu ya. The provision of large number of together with knowledge is required to perform research. Oke, research. Ini tadi scrap tools, radiation protection. Ini apa? Medication, cloth, kain, metal, plastik, elektronik, coal. Ini peta, oke. Ini apa? Notification. Nggak ada. Ini tas. Ini side task tutorial. Cistern build, ini masih dibangun. Ini kita lagi bangun. Oh ini, oh ya dia ngumpulkan bahan-bahannya gitu ya. Oke, terus kalau sudah baru dibangun. Ini apa? Game log. Ini survival gate tadi. Yang kiri ini bangun. Ini ada apa? Production limit. Oh, kita bisa membatasi. Oke, resource. Ini penuh enggaknya. Ini gudangnya water in stock turnover. Oke, jadi ini plus minusnya ya. Ini sekarang berhubung kita nggak punya water collector, jadi cuma 66 konsum, jadi minus. Mana ini? Oh, ini. Oke, sudah penuh. Terus dia mulai bangun. Oh iya betul. Priorities for builder, building, repairing buildings, masuk akal. Building roads. Ada jalan ya, disable building repair. Oh. Oke, sudah jadi. Terus tasknya assign satu to profession water carrier. Water carrier. Ternyata ada profesi pembawa air. Nah ini water carrier. Tadi suruh kasih 3. Oke. Viewers 20 air. Kita dikasih 20 air. 20 apa ini? 20 liter. 200. 200 liter ya banyak loh. Berapa galon air? Ini bisa dicepetin kayaknya. Ini. Oke, kita cepetin aja. Ya, nggak terlalu lelet. Building and build power grid. Satu bawa berapa? 25. Kenapa dia kembali?
Great. We have now installed a working water supply, and water is now transported from the jetty to our cistern. Consider hiring more water carriers if you don't have enough settlers available. You can never have enough water in storage.
Production unit 90.000. Okay.
Now we should focus on food production. It's important to ensure the supply right from the start. A gatherer's cabin, a hunting lodge, or a fishing hut can directly remedy the situation. I suggest starting with a fishing hut, since we're already located near a lake.
Oke, kita bikin fishing hut. Food, fishing hut. Oh, ini entrance-nya. Dekatkan juga. Efisiensi 100%. Wih, builder bangun. Kita cepatkan lagi. Ayo cepat. Quick access the building mods. Enggak mudeng. Langsung jadi. Bentar. Sand Fisher 2. Food produce. Oke, dipercepat langkahnya, cepat ya. Dasar pemalas. Statistik. Weather time of day. Good work.
We've now taken care of
you.
our basic supply via food and water. Make sure that you have enough food and water on hand at all times, especially if you want to upgrade your settlement. A population that grows too fast can quickly unbalance your food and water supply, bringing major difficulties for you if you don't watch out.
Okay.
Crops are another excellent way of getting food,
tanaman,
because they constantly grow as long as the soil is moist enough. Each seed has different yields and growing times. This means that it could take some time until your field is ready to be harvested, in contrast to your fishing hut, where production can be right away.
Oke, kita cultivate field. Cultivate ini membajak sawah. Kita suruh bikin berapa? Satu aja. 3 kali 3 lah. Nggak bisa. Oh, nggak bisa ya. Among others, the cultivator supplies food from farming communities, creating the food does not require an animal to cross the plant. Iya. Terus, oh, ada ukuran minimumnya. Kali 6, minimal 6 kali 6. Kayaknya iya. Kali 6. Terus farmer ya. Dan farmer berapa? 1. Season 3 ini apa? Mana farmerku? No seeds chosen. Seeds from field. Oh, kita milih ini choose seeds. Oh, gitu. From field cabbage. Choose seed. Cabbage. Harvest. Oke. Ini apa?
Looks good. Remember that we
dry.
need the widest variety of food sources to stay healthy. You should also plan ahead for drought periods that might come when it's not going to rain. Stock up on food and adapt your production to avoid bottlenecks. I'll show you a few more strategies later on.
Okay.
At the beginning, we don't have much scrap wood or other resources. We could build a production building, but to obtain resources as fast as possible, it's best that we start gathering right away. Assign a Gather All Resources task. All the settlers who haven't been assigned any profession by you are going to accept these kinds of tasks. In addition, settlers distribute resources within your settlement.
We could build a production building, but the option research best the way we start gathering requests and gather all resource tasks to all settlers who haven't been sent and when okay. Place gather wood mana? Oh, okay, building. Oh, building in task. Okay, gather wood. Oh, okay. Kalau tak taruh yang segede-gedenya. Gather scrap. Ini scrap kan? Ya, ini scrap kan? Ya, scrap. Oke, terus dia otomatis di assign gitu ya. Cara aku tahu orang yang nganggur berapa? Nggak bisa kah? Oh, ini sudah jadi dewasa. Oke, cara tahu orangku yang nganggur nggak ada kayaknya. Notification, punya additional host. Oke. Free settle available.
Since we now own plenty of resources, we can start to build a real production building. Then you don't have to always make efforts by hand that collecting is taking place.
Okay.
Production buildings are not only easier to manage, they are also distinctly more effective than simple tasks. Don't place production buildings too far away from your settlement. You'll be able to change their working area at any time later on. Right on. The best thing for us to do now is to build a forester's lodge to automate our supply of wood and make it more effective at the same time. Foresters are not only able to chop down trees, they reforest areas with trees as well.
Oh, oke. Kita bikin forester. Saya ini tak ganti. Hey, saving. Moist wet. Forester lots. Forester berapa? Satu wood produce. Terus kita bisa bangun apa lagi? Scrap udah bisa. Recycler belum boleh. Oke. Oh, kalau dia nanam juga ya enak sih, jadi kita nggak perlu pindah-pindah gitu ya, bisa digedein lah. Oke, jadi itu beberapa basic needs: water, food dari farm, sama mancing. Terus ada wood, ini apa? Water, oncoming drop, soil become infertile. Oke, ini bisa jadi nggak subur, jadi kita perlu nyimpan air yang banyak. Ini tandanya apa? Kepenuhan kah? Caranya lihat apa? Oh, ini surplus. Oke. Mas aku disuruh apa ini? Build. Hei, bangun. Kejauhan ya.
Good job. You might want to change this building's working area later on to tell your workers where they should get their wood from. Ah, and for your information, if you want, you can also tell your forester's lodge that they only ought to attend to reforesting an area in order to create a lush, green forest which generations to come can use. Very good.
Rada mundeng
Now we
masuknya.
ought to take care of collecting scrap. Scrap is one of the most valuable resources because the quantities present are limited, and we can recover other resources from scrap. Unlike the task we just had, the scrap yard allows larger quantities of existing scrap to be dismantled than with ruins or wrecks.
Oke, sebentar. Saya kalau di sini nutupin ya. Saya tak coba pindahkan ke sebelah. Bentar guys. Oke, kayaknya better saya di sini ya. Oh, scrapyard. Oke. Ini baru bisa sampai. Oh, scrapyard bukan tadi. Ini banyak. Tapi tak pikir recycler. Scrapyard. Oke, mungkin buildernya tak tambah boleh. Oh, scrap collector 1. Buildernya tak tambah. Settlernya 2. Nggak bisa kayaknya. Sama aja sih, ini soalnya cuman ada maksimumnya. Cepat. Scrap kolektorku cuma 1.
Change the working area for the scrapyard too. We can recycle scrap into 4 additional resources: cloth, metal, plastic, and electronics. We'll do that shortly, but for now we ought to take care of your settlers' needs first.
Okay.
Our people want a place to sleep and live. Cabins fulfill their need for safety and privacy, and increase the confidence of their inhabitants. In other words, building cabins increases their willingness to start families and reproduce. If you know what I mean.
Yeah. Cabin build. Oh, cabin ini rumahnya. Location attractiveness min 4. Kayaknya yang 0 ya. Kita gabung gini bisa nih, bisa ya. Terus gabung aja. Apakah butuh orang lebih? Sementara kita pasangkan orang lebih untuk bikin rumah-rumah ini. Itu 8. Oh, yang enggak juga harusnya ya.
Besides cabins, you can also provide sturdy houses and shelters as housing. Sturdy houses withstand sandstorms better and have an increased storage capacity to boot. Children living in houses gradually fill up the house's stockpiles. Settlers do not reproduce in a shelter because they lack privacy. Let's return from our excursion into housing and refocus on scrap. With the help of a recycler or refinery, Scrap can be sorted into 4 different resources. A recycler always takes scrap apart, one resource at a time, while a refinery automatically produces all 4 resources. To start off, you should build a recycler and produce cloth.
Oke, recycler. Ini yang recycler tadi. Recycler. Builderku tak kurangi. Assign settler to profession refiner. Sebelum jadi bisa. Code produce 4. Ini bikin dulu nih. Yuk. Oh, kita bisa menentukan mau bikin yang apa. Yang metal, plastik, elektronik belum ada. Apa butuh air ya?
You can instruct your recycler to produce a different resource at a time. It's important that you focus on the resources you really need, at least in the beginning. Cloth and metal look like good options if you want to equip us with protective clothing and tools.
Great.
Happy settlers are industrious settlers. That's why we ought to look after our people and protect them against the surroundings and dangers, like radiation. So let's start by transforming our newly recovered cloth into protective clothing. A tailor will be able to help us with that.
Oke, jadi recycler ini cuma bisa satu resource dalam satu waktu. Kita menentukan, terus kita butuh tailor. Radiative protection. Oh, next car, level radiation. Oke. Tailor. Ini apa caranya? Bikin tailor shape. Tailor shape build, next craft produce. Ini apa ini? Residual radiation. Oh, ada radiasi. Ngapain dia aja? Malik. Scrap collector kenapa tidak bekerja? Kenapa dia idle? Kenapa idle? Oh, sudah habis. Sini diapakan ya? Dipindah nggak bisa? Oh, cuman bisa satu tak ya? Nggak bisa beberapa gitu ya? Caterwood, oke, Caterwoodnya juga ini habis. Kita pindah ke sini jadi supaya clear. Cepetan wih. Car produce. Bahannya apa? Bahannya apa nggak tahu ya. Oh ini oh itu cloth 2. Saya cloth tadi scrap 1. Oke. Ini apa? Ini rumah. Maksudnya bisa di upgrade production limit, bisa dinaikin tak? Maksudnya apa ya? Kenapa di limit? Duh, sudah season 9. Cepet banget. Mana next scarf-nya pada jadi-jadi nih. Kau belum bikin-bikin ya? Orangnya tadi lagi collect ini ya, lagi nganggur, makanya dia kembali dari atas, gitu kah?
We categorize environmental radiation into 4 levels: no radiation, low level, medium level, and high level radiation. The radiation changes constantly and is influenced by weather and contaminated rain. Protective clothing helps to protect us against this kind of radiation, but it takes a while before it's produced. And production relies on a steady flow of incoming resources. Try to establish production chains at an early stage and start to stockpile goods so that some are always on hand. The tools we brought along from the Endzone are slowly but surely running out. So now, let's focus on manufacturing new tools. The tools will help us to work effectively. We'll need metal for that, so we'll prepare for production by building another recycler, which we'll commission to recover metal from scrap. After that, we'll need a workshop to enable the manufacturing of brand new tools.
Oke, kita bikin recycle lagi. Terus refiner. Install recycler to metal. Ini belum jadi. Oh, ini sudah punya anak. Oh, nice. Maksimalnya berapa nggak tahu. Belum tahu. Oke, ini sudah happy. Nah, ini metal. Kita bikin workshop. Technician, tapi habis. Bisa gue tak kurangi. Techniciannya mana? Ini satu. Metal tool. Ini ya, scrap tool. Metal tool. Oke, kurangku habis ini 8 mana, tapi cuma 6 ya guys. Oh, masih bayi. Oke, Oke, mereka bahagia sekali dan membuat banyak anak. Apakah ini pertanda yang bagus? Maybe. Happy wife, happy life. Salah, happy wife, happy family. Happy family kan restoran. Karena ini tutorial jadi aku udah bisa bikin yang lain-lain. Improve unit infrastructure apa? Storage capacity running. Oh ini. Berhubung tutorial jadi so what gitu loh. Metal to produce. Ini mulai bikin satu. Data ini ya, meskipun sudah punya, kita perlu ke storage-nya dulu ngambil, terus ke tempat pembuatan. Itu yang bikin lama.
With our lovely new tools, we are now prepared to work effectively. Should you ever run out of metal, keep in mind that you can also instruct your workshop to manufacture tools from scrap instead of metal. Though they won't be quite as effective, it's still better than being forced to work with bare hands.
Okay.
Down in the Endzone, we had sufficient time and resources to educate ourselves properly. But our children don't have this luxury. We ought to build a school and pass on what we've learned. As a result, they will be able to survive and work better and more effectively.
School, kita bangun sekolah. Sekolahnya agak jauh aja. Janganlah, dekat aja. Dekat rumah, dekat rumah. Rumahku mana ini? Biar jadi kampung idaman. Lengkap dengan sekolahnya. Terus saya teacher. Oke, orangku sudah dewasa. Teacher ini satu. Buat apa tapi ya? Woi. Teacher educate children to a certain extent in all subjects. Focus can be placed on individual subject to early educate children and speed up the education that. Oh, okay. Power consumption, ada power consumptionnya. Oh, ini memenuhi children educated faster gitu ya. Oke.
Perfect. Besides the fact that educated children work more effectively, we'll also teach them to be more careful with their protective clothing and tools. This, in turn, leads to them staying intact longer, and we conserve valuable resources. Now that our population is starting to grow, we ought to again turn our attention to the topic of food production. We are already accumulating fish and tilling our fields. A gatherer's cabin will now enable us to gather mushrooms and berries from the forest nearby.
Cabin. Oh, oke. Kita bangun di tengah-tengah itu. Ini kejauhan. Nah, ini atas ini ada. Banyak juga ya. Baseku mana? Baseku yang ini. Caterer. Oh, settler. Oh, nambah 10. Cepet ya? Atau ada orang baru datang ya? Wow. Fish produce mushroom. Oke. Builderku kita tambahin. Water kolektornya kurang. Kayak gitu ya. Jadi kita perlu ngawasi resource-nya, kita kurang apa dan kita kelebihan apa, terus kita bisa ngatur professionnya sama bangunannya. Misal kayak ini, kalau misalnya kita berlebihan metal, kita bisa ganti metal. Kalau misalnya metalnya habis, kita ganti scrap tuh. Oke, mulai mengerti tentang gamenya.
Very good. As you can see, the gatherer's cabin is an effective possibility to get food quickly. But watch out. After a drought, it's going to take some time before the plants have regrown. As is the case with most buildings, here too, you can relocate the working area.
Working
Although
area.
we are sufficiently supplied at the moment, our survival depends on diligent planning. If we can lay out a plan for an orchard, then we can start to plant fruit or nut trees that we can harvest after a few.
Orchard. Orchard ini kayak garden gitu ya. Apakah mau dekat-dekat? Dekat ini ya, dekat air. 6 kali 6 juga minimal. Iya. Defense, mode defense-nya berarti nanti ada musuhnya ini ya. Electricity, food station. Kita ngapain? Sampai farmernya kurang. Seed from field chosen. Choose seeds plum. Ini belum bisa. This is not been found yet. Send expedition. Oh, jadi tidak semuanya kebuka di awal ya.
The orchard has been laid out, and the trees are already beginning to grow. Similar to crops for farming, trees need some time until they are fully grown. But once they have grown, they can be harvested again and again until they have to be newly planted. Our gatherer's cabin gathers food from the surrounding forests. However, there are any number of other plants there which we can use as well. These plants can be gathered by an herbal hut. The herbs gathered there can be consumed by settlers to replenish their health.
Oke, terkait dengan food consumption forest. Apel dan member of the band. Oke. Oke, jadi herbal hut. Kita ada gather hut kemana? Oh, gather cabin. Ini makanan. Kalau herbal hut ini tanaman. Herbalist satu aja. Oh, orang gua kebanyakan. Tambah lagi. Yang kurang air sih.
Well done. We can equally utilize the gathered herbs to convert them into medicine later on. It might happen that an illness breaks out in our settlement from time to time and spreads among our settlers. That's why we always ought to have enough herbs on hand.
Oke.
Radiation is the main reason why the health status of our settlement can decrease. Although our settlers already use protective clothing to shield themselves against environmental radiation, it might occur that our sources of water become contaminated. We should start to filter our water to prevent this from happening. We will need a great deal of charcoal to accomplish this. The charcoal kiln will burn wood to produce charcoal.
Oke. Ya, air ini bisa terkontaminasi. Terus kita bisa bikin arang. Dia ngambilnya dari wood kan ya, saya wood. Cara kita wood yang mana gimana? Ini woodnya. Kayaknya di sini sih ya. Ya disimpan di wood semua, apa di town center semua. Fish, water. Oh, water nggak di sini. Oh ini. Oh cuma terbatas di sini, makanya kurang. Oke, saya coba tak bikin lagi ya. Tambahi waternya, charcoal burner. Charcoal coal. Kita bisa tahu dah ini kurangnya kenapa. Wishes, dari mana wishesnya mereka?
Great. We can use the charcoal in conjunction with a filtration system to purify our water. Unfortunately, our cistern is not able to do this. Only the water tower has the necessary equipment for this capability. It would be a disgrace if we had to demolish our trusted cistern just to erect a water tower in its place. What we ought to do instead is upgrade the cistern itself. A water tower can store much more water and provides workplaces for a lot more water carriers than our old cistern.
Oke, bisa di-upgrade. Oh, langsung otomatis ya. Oke. Loh, kok berkurang? Water carrier langsung nambah berapa? Tambah 15. Oh, enggak ya, ini karena tak tambah ini ya, masing-masing 5. Tuh, ini sudah upgraded ya. Ini aktif. Recycler. Recycler mana? Saya kira recycler apa? Plastik. Refiner. Lapis plastik. Scrapnya habis. Ini banyak nih. Oh, lama ya?
Our new water tower is up and ready for action. Good work. Filtering the water is an important next step because clean drinking water is a key mainstay of any stable society.
Great.
Let's begin with filtering our water. To save on charcoal, we ought to ensure that at least a little bit of water not contaminated by radiation is being stored in our water tower. Water gained from a well is never contaminated by radiation, so it suggests itself for that purpose. Then we can use the remaining charcoal to produce better protective clothing.
Untuk nyimpan arang, we have to ensure that at least a little bit of water not contaminated by radiation. Why? Well keeper operates. Traktor. Tailor shop. Ternyata semuanya berpusatnya juga balik ke sini semua ya, town center semua. Percuma tak bangun sebelah ini. Gak bisa metal enggak. refiner ya. Gak ada orang. Water carrier.
Good work.
Oke, selesai.
We are continuously taking steps towards being better and better equipped to be able to survive in this hostile environment. Filtered water is a precious asset, and later on we can even use it to irrigate our fields. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Not only our water can become a hazard for our settlers due to radiation, our food can too. We ought to erect a decontamination post to prevent settlers from eating meals that are contaminated with radiation. Dekontaminator. Butuh banyak. Lama ini. Speednya sekarang nggak kelihatan ya. 3 sekarang. Kita ganti-ganti supaya lebih cepat. Ya kayak kelembapannya itu sering berganti seiring ada hujan apa enggak gitu. Oke. Cukup detail juga ya. Dan orangku terus berkurang. Very good. The decontamination post is going to supply all buildings that stockpile food and are located in its working area in order to purify the food that has been affected by radiation. It's true. We should never forget that even when we optimally prepare and protect ourselves, we're still going to lose friends and members of our family time and again. We're going to mourn them come what may. But if we're able to bury them in a cemetery, then we'll get over the pain and let them rest in peace.
Oke, cemetery. Ini apa ini? Perlu stop itu yang tiba beres check scrapian forester. Oh, ini ta. Soalnya habis. Masih banyak. Ini karena sudah limit. Kenapa kalau dinaikkan kan apa? Kenapa? Masalahnya apa kalau dinaikkan? Mereka kerja terus gitu kan? Ya nggak apa-apa. Loh, besarku kok berkurang. Minggat. Nah. Build additional host. cemetery. Wih, gedenya. Berhubung ini agak jauh aja. Nanti dihantui. Oh, ini masih banyak lah ini. Oh, pohonnya ditebangi dulu semua. Oke, jadi kita tinggal setting terus nunggu gitu ya. Oke. Ini kejauhan jadi kayak lama bangunnya karena kejauhan. Ada ini ya kayak gudang gitu. Mainnya cukup satu tangan, pakai mouse aja. Tombol-tombol mungkin bisa sih, kayak ada shortcut-shortcutnya, cuman berhubung masih tutorial jadi kayaknya belum perlu sampai micro managing gitu. Bisa kan? Orangnya berkurang kan? Defender. Oh, kayaknya iya. Oh, sudah habis. Terus aku udah ngerti ini field of view. Tadi juga bisa ganti. Terus salah. Ini ya, ini bisa ganti. Terus efeknya apa? Change field of view. Terus bedanya sama yang ini apa? Order settler to gather all the wood. This produce less outcome than using forester. Oh, ini cuma untuk yang settler, berarti yang nganggur-nganggur.
Okay. The cemetery will help us to quickly get a hold on ourselves and focus on the tasks that lie ahead. It's not a pleasant thought, but that's the way things are. At the very least, we're pioneers, aren't we? Maybe we ought to distract ourselves to lighten up the mood. We can erect a number of buildings to increase confidence in our settlement, including, for example, a campfire or a pub. In this situation, however, our best option would probably be to upgrade our town center. Settlers can visit the new town center, and by doing so, increase their confidence for a while.
Upgrade town center. Motor bus. Upgrade. Motor bus. Oh.
Very good. The new town center not only gives us more storage space, at the same time, it functions just like a campfire too. Settlers can visit the new town center, and by doing so, increase their confidence for a while. Now that we have made efforts to ensure the spiritual well-being of our settlers, we ought to attend to their physical health as well. Our settlers can get sick from time to time. Settlers who have become infected with a disease can die from it if they're not treated. Settlers will go to a medical facility to have themselves treated and will be admitted there, provided that beds are still available. We ought to ensure our settlers' medical health care.
Medical facility. Ini apa maksudnya? Unattractive. Kok bisa unattractive? Kenapa unattractive? Negative influence. Oh, kena ini soalnya ya. Itu tak hancurkan. Oke. Medical facility. Ini apa ini? Angka apa ini? Radiation. Oh, kita ada radiasi semuanya. Kayaknya settlernya yang bersihkan radiasinya ya, terus baru dibangun. Oke, jadi yang ini itu kalau misalnya yang nganggur. Kalau misalnya tidak nganggur, kita tergantung sama kita hilang dulu. Tergantung sama bangunan ini, forestal lodge. Semua scrapnya. Kok belum diambil tapi ya? Belum diambil. Sudah ya. Medical facility-nya lagi dibangun. Medik. Production limit. Foodnya dibatasi. Oh iya, sutetnya hilang.
With this step, we have ensured the survival of the settlement for a while. Very good work. Since more and more children are being born these days, we should start to plan for the long term. While cabins are a good way to get settlers to start a family, they only provide limited space. This can quickly lead to people having to live on the street. Allow me to suggest to you that cabins be provided only in a very targeted manner in order to control the population growth of your settlement. Nothing is worse than not having enough resources to provide for everyone. We ought to build a shelter to be able to provide other inhabitants with a roof over their heads too.
Nggak bisa di-upgrade ya. Perlu terpisah. Shelter. Oh, gede. Ada attractiveness-nya. Deket-deket kuburan biar perkampungannya berhantu. Wah, kok kena radiasi ya? Oh enggak, sudah enggak. Oke, orangku tambah banyak. Cepatkan lagi. Kalau dua ini tidak nyala berarti tiga ya. Nggak kelihatan. Kayaknya kita tinggal tiktokan aja, belum selesai mas ya.
Very good. Remember that when children grow up, they're going to leave their parents' house. look around for a new place to live. It might happen that they don't find any home at all. We ought to build a shelter to be able to provide all inhabitants with a roof over their heads. I've already pointed out to you that it could become very dangerous if we were to run out of food at some point. Since a lot of people are going to be living in the new shelter, we ought to provide them with access to food in their vicinity. A hunting lodge can look for wildlife in the surrounding area to bring a little meat to the menu.
Oke, hunting lodge, kita berburu sekarang. Yang diburu apa? Oh, ini ada banyak sih. Ini udah di hutan gitu sih. Ini lumayan jauh-jauh sekarang. Oh, sudah 60. Wow. Positive influence mana? Belum ada. Decoration kayaknya ya. Basah. Wih. Di-upgrade aja. Upgrade-nya buat apa? Oh, banyak. Punya. Bikin shelter lagi aja. Sip. Jangan terlalu cepat, nanti foodnya habis. Nggak ada total ya. Oh, kita pelusan kayaknya ya. Yoi. Kurang wakeh. Banyak yang mati ya. Terus kalau contaminated gini gimana?
Perfect. The hunting lodge equally provides us directly with food, but it functions somewhat irregularly because it relies on wildlife in the surrounding area. Nevertheless, it can be indispensable during a drought because even the deer and wild boar still roam around the forest.
Menarik. Jadi hewan-hewannya kayak rusa itu yang bisa diburu selalu ada, tapi maksudnya nggak stay gitu. Dia berkeliaran di hutan-hutan.
However,
Menarik.
wild animals can not only be shot, they can be captured too. When a wild animal has been captured, it can be brought to a pasture and served there as livestock.
Lifestyle. Reset your capture option. Hunting and capturing. Pasture. Pasture ini nggak punya. Kalau kayak ini, oh location terkunci nggak ada ya, oke. Kita ngubah jadi herder. Settlernya diubah jadi anjing. Assign a type of animal to your pasture as soon as your hunter has captured an animal. Bangun dulu dong. Kok kita yang menaikkan sendiri limitnya ya? Nggak diaturkan gitu ya? Oke, sudah bangun. Sana type of animal.
Animals captured by a hunter are brought to a pasture where they are tended to and cared for by herders. Some animals produce resources such as milk or eggs. Other animals can only be slaughtered to eat. You ought to find out for yourself which type of animal brings you which benefit. On each pasture, you can choose which type of animal ought to be kept there. You must provide water for the animals you keep on your pasture. This enables them to survive and reproduce. When enough animals are fully grown, the herder will start to slaughter them. If you don't want animals to be slaughtered, you can also instruct the herder not to do so. Now your herders know how they ought to handle the animals. And now that you've already captured several animals, don't forget to instruct your hunters to hunt animals again in the future so that they can continue to gather and provide food. With our increased production, our stockpile is going to run out soon. The supply routes for our production buildings are getting longer and longer too. To tackle these problems, you ought to build a temporary storeroom and have roads laid out.
Nah, ini berhubung base-nya di sini jadi agak jauh. Kita bisa taruh di sini. Build dirt road. Road. Logistik dirt road.
Good. Temporary storerooms increase your settlement's general storage capacity. Place them in a targeted manner in order to shorten the routes for goods between your production buildings. Roads are equally a great benefit because settlers moving on roads can go distinctly faster than on a normal supporting surface. To improve the whole thing even further, we can build a market to improve logistics at the settlement. Besides being an enormous stockpile for resources that is even able to store water, the market is responsible for distributing resources within your settlement. What's more, it also increases your settlers' confidence.
Ini bagus ini untuk meningkatkan attractiveness. Clear building area. Di clear dulu, remove radiation 200. Banyak. Oke, terus baru ngirim barang-barang, mereka ambilnya dari sini. Temporary storeroom. Jadi satu ya? Enggak. Misal kita bilang scrap 874. Ini kan? Scrap. Enggak. Oke lah. Persentase kali ya. Marketnya udah jadi. Logistation. Wow.
Logisticians are able to amass resources from the whole settlement and bring them to the market. This improves the flow of your products and leads to your settlers having to walk shorter distances to fulfill their individual needs. The combination of these attributes makes the market the ideal building when you want to enlarge or even relocate your settlement. The larger your settlement gets, the farther some settlers have to travel to get to all of the food you produce. To make life a little easier for them, you can build a food station. Logisticians who work at the food station will collect food from your storage buildings and production facilities and bring it to the food station.
Mulai ribet. Food station. Oke, jadi market ini bawa apa? Fish, raw, masuk beres. Ini kan juga food. Oke. Kasih semua nih 18.
With the new food station, your settlers are now able to supply themselves with food directly on site. If your settlement is supposed to grow even further, you can think about whether you want to provide additional food stations. Distributing food at your settlement is going to prove to be extremely practical. However, your settlers not only need food to survive, they need water too. To be able to distribute water in a targeted manner, you can build a water point.
Oke, ini benar. Ini benar. Ini mirip kayak food station ya, food sama water. Oke. Terus market ini untuk jualan.
Now that your settlers also have a water point available, they can supply themselves with water and food. Similar to how it's done at the food stations, this enables you to precisely control at which places your settlers are able to attend to their needs. Since we have our logistics under control, now we can concern ourselves with the weather and its challenges. We can build a weather station to enable us to make a forecast regarding upcoming weather and learn if potentially contaminated rain might be coming our way. It can also be used to prepare our crops and rainwater collectors we might have against contaminated rain by covering them.
Metalnya habis. Oke, scrapnya.
Very good. Now that we know what sort of weather awaits us and how we can protect ourselves against contaminated rain by covering our crops and rainwater collectors, we ought to attend to collecting the rain we want. Rain not only humidifies the soil, it can also be automatically collected via rainwater collectors to generate a steady flow of additional water. Since we've already built our weather station, we're able to decide what kind of circumstances would make us want to cover our rain collectors. Never forget that our settlers might get sick if we distribute water contaminated with radiation. We can have our crops covered to shield our seedlings against radiation. But once they've been covered, naturally they won't be irrigated with rain anymore. To rectify this problem, we can build an irrigation plant that is able to artificially regulate soil humidification. Place this building with care, because it is only going to irrigate the soil within its impact radius.
Ya, yang satunya di bawah. Oh, bisa? Nggak bisa. Oh, bisa. Oh, kalau di deactivate ya. Irrigator namanya.
Fabulous. As long as our irrigation plant is supplied with filtered water, it is able to neutralize a possible contamination of the soil due to radiation. But watch out. When water contaminated with radiation is fed into the system, this can lead to precisely the opposite. And the irrigation plant itself may possibly cause radioactive pollution of its surrounding area. Alongside contaminated rain, there are other environmental hazards, such as sandstorms or droughts. The soil dries out during a drought, and sandstorms sweep across the landscape from time to time. These sandstorms can damage your buildings and ultimately make them unfit for use. We ought to prepare for this and assign several more builders to enable potential damage to be repaired. You can decide which type of task your builders ought to give priority to at our town center. You can instruct them to merely repair buildings, to erect new buildings, or to do both at the same time. This enables you to react quickly in crisis situations. For instance, in the event of a sandstorm, you can quickly attend to having damaged buildings repaired. Now that we've taken care of all the necessary needs of our settlement, such as food, water, protective clothing, and tools, our next efforts ought to focus on increasing the settlement's overall productivity. A research station allows us to develop different technologies. One step in moving our settlement ahead is to make it possible for our refiners to acquire electronics from scrap. We should perform research on the appropriate technology to achieve this and instruct one of our refiners to produce electronics.
Research station. Oh, ini mah. Kita bikinin jalan supaya lebih cepat. Researcher 5. Terus mana? Oh ini. Knowledge open research window. Oh, ada talent tree-nya. Previous semester, kita disuruh apa dulu? Electronic research. Recycler, kita butuh bikin recycler lagi. Terlebih dahulu kita perlu research elektronik. Mana elektronik? Require resource. Oh, oke. Serverku kurang dah. Oh, bisa dibatasi ya. Kenapa tanda tanya? Water. Oh, aku perlu water collector, perlu water tank. Kalau water point lagi system, bukan water point di logistik. season 55. Season ini kayak bulan, musim, bulan kali ya. Ini maco. Sudah malam, maco minta tidur. Bentar Jo, bentar. Tunggu ya. Ngantuk arek. Bentar ya. Kita punya elektronik
With
sekarang.
this new research station and the ability to acquire electronics from scrap, we can provide our settlement with all the materials we need. The research station is very useful in enabling us to adapt ourselves to our surroundings by using the right technologies in any situation. Down in the Endzone, we dealt with the concept of a solar collector. This solar collector is able to collect sunlight and convert it into electricity. We wanted to try out whether our idea works and build a solar collector.
Ini apa ini? Power production, solar collector. Semakin kompleks.
The solar collector produces energy by capturing sunlight and feeding this energy into a grid. The solar collector also gives us all the relevant information we need to keep an eye on our settlement's power consumption. Each of your buildings automatically hook up to this power grid when you set up an electric power pole within the building's range. Buildings supplied with electricity work distinctly, more effectively, and produce faster as a result. What's more, housing supplied with electricity increases the confidence of the settlers who use it.
Mana tapi? mepet-mepet ya. Oh, perlu dibangun dulu ya. Aha. Ini ada yang nggak nyambung. Oke, kita mulai masuk ke listrik. Panjang juga ya, ini sudah hampir 2 jam lebih. Tutorial macam apa 2 jam itu? Merah ini
Fantastic. I can only picture how our ancestors must have felt with their almost infinite supply of energy. However, you ought to constantly keep an eye on your power consumption to avoid outages.
merah itu udah cukup berarti ya.
Logically, the solar collector is only able to produce energy during the daytime.
Iya, masuk
It
akal.
would be beneficial if we could also make electricity available at night so that our settlement remains effective. It's clear that we currently work slower at night. So let's try to store the surplus energy we produce during the daytime to enable it to be used at night.
Battery. Ini apa ya? Scrap. Builderku kayaknya kurang. Kerja, kerja, yo. Metalnya kurang ya. Metalnya kurang. Ayo, ayo, metalnya apa yang dibutuhkan ini? Scrapku banyak. Jauh dah. Enggak juga. Udah ada jalan juga.
That looks good. Some buildings are now connected to the power grid. Although a well-structured settlement that's hooked up to the power grid consumes a certain amount of resources, it is enormously effective. Oh, and just as an aside, you can have electric power poles put up on many surfaces, even on roads. With the settlement producing on a stable scale, we can now focus on exploring our surroundings. Though we heard a bunch of stories in the Endzone, now we can explore the ruins our ancestors left behind firsthand to find treasure and resources. Let's build an expedition station.
Kita terluka gitu ya. Ini lukanya berapa enggak tahu. Storage. Bagus. Kalau di jalan halangi udah ya. Coba aja. 1. Metalnya kurang banyak. Ya, apa karena dipakai tool metalnya? Oke, berarti next kita juga perlu mempertimbangkan antara jalan sama tiang listrik supaya bisa terakomodasi dengan baik. Scout, Explorer nggak bisa. President Install. Send Scout.
Well done. Assign settlers to be scouts and prepare expedition rations. When you want to send off an expedition, you can decide the quantity of expedition rations with which to supply the expedition. As a result, you can control how long and how thoroughly it is able to explore a ruin. Let's send out a few scouts to find a ruin. The scout will visit the ruin you have designated and explore it. As a result, the scout will supply us with important information about the site that we should pay attention to when we start an expedition. Our scout has returned and brought along a variety of useful information. Now that we know what we have to reckon with, we can put together a team in order to explore the ruin more precisely.
Oh, ini baru scout.
Each ruin has its own challenges, secrets, and valuable resources. Choose settlers who fulfill the necessary prerequisites for the respective ruin, and give them enough expedition rations to take along. In addition, don't forget to equip them with protective clothing and tools to the best of your ability before you send them off.
Bentar. Cancel. Prepare yourself for expedition. Start an expedition. Bener ya? Misal ini greenhouse. Oke. Oh, orangnya very oprek. Caterer mana? Ada.
Now that you've commissioned the expedition, it's now in preparation stage. Expedition rations and other necessary resources are being amassed. Afterwards, the settlers you selected will relinquish their old tasks, assemble, equip themselves, and subsequently set off together on their way. Get yourself ready to make tough decisions. Good news. Your expedition has finally reached its destination. Now it's all up to you. Contact them and listen to what they have to say to you. Make wise decisions and guide the settlers through the ruin with meticulous care.
We've arrived at the greenhouse, Chief. I don't know what that scout told you. To us, it just looks like any other ruin scattered around in the wilderness. Not very promising.
Take a look around. Oh, akhirnya bisa.
Well done. Your decisions during an expedition are decisive for its success. Try to be as well prepared as possible and make wise decisions, because the consequences could be fatal. Now let's loot this place and get out of here. Now that you know how you can help your settlers to manage in this environment so hostile to life, I'd like to show you how you can design your settlement in such a way so that your settlers are not only able to survive in it, they're actually glad to be here as well. Your settlers are eager to live in surroundings that please them. For instance, they'd rather not live next to a building that produces lots of noise or dirty grime. You can switch to the heat map of dwellings' attractiveness to be able to see just how attractive the dwellings in your settlement are.
Yang tadi saya
In this
lakukan.
view, you see which cabins and shelters have been placed in attractive surroundings and which ones are in unattractive surroundings. If you want to make your settlers particularly happy, you should pay attention to providing them with attractive surroundings.
Nah, dinegasi sama ini.
To increase the attractiveness of a residential area, you can put up some decorations to beautify your settlement. Each decoration increases the attractiveness of the area where it has been placed. Maybe it's time for you to design your settlement a little more attractively to make your settlers happier.
Oke, kita bangun dekorasi. Kayaknya ini terakhir. Oh, ada defense mas ya. Masih panjang, choice.
Your settlers are really going to like the newly built decorations. This way, you can even manage to design a residential area attractively that's located near industrial buildings. And with sufficient time and energy, even create a settlement where all your settlers are glad to live in it. Although living in a pretty neighborhood isn't the only thing that interests your settlers, they want you to take care of their other needs as well. If you provide them with a forum, they'll make their wishes and requests known to you. You can find out what means a lot to them there.
Forum. Ini bis. Gerbuk-gerbuk.
Excellent. Many of your settlers' requests are collected for you at the forum. You ought to check every now and then whether you might be willing to agree to one of those wishes. However, the forum is not only responsible for enabling your settlers to turn to you. At the forum, you can address them too. You can issue decrees and establish rules at the forum, stating how your settlers need to behave. This way, for example, you can ration food and water, or go so far as to prohibit your settlers from reproducing in the near future.
Berkontrol. Forum.
Many of the decrees are extremely helpful toward enabling the survival of your settlement, though you should watch out that you don't demand too much of your settlers. If you ask too much of them, it can lead to discontentment spreading throughout your settlement. That's why you always ought to use caution in deciding which decrees you want to impose. Although such a thriving settlement like this one here not only has its advantages, it could be that the attention of prowling raiders is drawn to you, and you'll have to defend yourself against them. First of all, it's going to be important to set up your own defenses. An ammunition factory is going to be necessary to arm those settlers who will be defending your settlement in the future. It would be best if you also assigned several technicians right away who are supposed to work at the ammunition factory.
Ya, kayaknya ini yang tutorial tracker ya, bagian defense. technician, mana technician?
Very good. It's left up to you to decide whether you want to have your ammunition factory manufacture lethal or non-lethal ammunition. While lethal ammunition deals damage to the attacking raiders, non-lethal ammunition ensures that their morale sinks. If the raiders have lost all their morale, they'll flee. No matter what type of ammunition you want to have manufactured, one thing can't be missing. Your ammunition factory requires some sulfur for production. Sulfur can be obtained in your mines. To do this, simply instruct your mines to mine sulfur in the future.
Oke, sulfur. Main oh, kudu di research. Content site ini. 두두입니다.
Very good, old friend. Now the production of ammunition can get going full steam ahead. To be able to give your settlement blanket protection against attackers, the next thing you want to do is to build several watchtowers and assign militia there. Your settlers will fire at raiders from these watchtowers. It will be best if you place your towers in such a way that they don't stand too close to each other, so that your entire settlement can be protected whenever possible.
watchtower. Oke, kita mulai bikin watchtower. Militia. Oh. Oh, nambah 2 menu ini.
Very good. These watchtowers form the center of your defense. At each watchtower, you can individually configure the type of ammunition the militia who have been assigned there are supposed to fire at the raiders. As you can see, the raider force is now on its way here. Pay attention to the direction they're coming from. You might have enough time to adapt your defense a bit. I'm going to keep my head down for the time being, until those scoundrels don't bother the settlement anymore. Good luck.
You've said my people are hopeless cases. We were once. I took in one and all. Together we are strong. Give us what we need, then no one will get hurt.
It looks as if they were the last raiders, and the settlement's still standing. Well, it did get a few scratches here and there, but nothing we couldn't recover from.
We'll rise again, over and over again, and that's a promise.
Ada laporan raidnya. Oh, buatku makan banyak.
However, in many cases, the raiders won't be paying you a visit just like that, without any advance warning and a reason. Most of the time, they'll demand tribute from you beforehand. If you can pay this tribute, they'll leave you in peace. That is, at least for a certain period of time. This time, I want you to pay the tribute the raiders are demanding from you, so that we can focus on rebuilding here at the settlement. Very good. By doing so, you bought us a little time to be able to prepare ourselves further.
Aku udah tahu apa yang terjadi.
I think the time has come at last for me to bow out as mentor.
Oh,
I've taught you everything I know,
ya pamit.
and you've proven yourself by keeping us healthy and in good spirits. I may have taken care of heading our last days in the Endzone, but now all my faith lies with you. I believe that you are going to lead us to a glorious future.
Great. Achievement ada kok tadi. Oke, nanti lah. Oke, jadi inilah dia sih. Aku quit ini ke quit game. Yang aku maksud itu quit dari sebentar, tunggu sebentar, Cakama. Oke, updating Endzone. Apanya yang diupdate? Tunggu sebentar guys, sorry. Nyimpen ke cloud kah? Oke, ini sudah masuk loading. Oke, tutorialnya masih ada banyak kata. Ini tadi main tutorial. Main tutorial aja 2,5 jam. Wow. Bahas skenarios. Oke, lumayan banyak lah ya skenario-nya. Jadi survive 50 season. Aku tadi sudah berapa? 90 season kayaknya. Kalau continue yang tadi ya. Tadi tutorial. Iya. Oke, kalau kita mau keluar tadi ini game tutorial. Coba sih saya tak ngintip sebentar yang water tutorial kayak apa. Apakah sepanjang main tutorial tadi?
I'm glad we
Arthur
prepared
lagi.
ourselves well for this kind of scenario, especially since our inventories in the Endzone ran low. Don't forget that if you need additional information, you can look at our survival guide at any time. Welcome to this exercise, old friend. In this session, I want to explain and demonstrate how you can supply your settlers with water. When your settlers don't have sufficient water available, in the worst case, this can lead to making them suffer from thirst and, as a result, possibly even die. To be able to prevent this, I'm going to show you what kinds of measures you can take to create a stable water supply. The first thing your settlers need is a place where they can stockpile and consume water. The cistern is probably the most practical site to start off with. Place a cistern in the vicinity of the nearby lake and assign several workers to the profession water carrier.
Kita nggak perlu ngurusi yang lain ya, kita cuma perlu ngurusi yang di
Your
situ
water
aja.
carriers have the task of transporting
water.
water from different sources into your cistern. This is so your settlers have a place to go to supply themselves with water. However, to gather water, you not only need a site where it can be stored, you also need a source from which your water carriers can obtain the water. To accomplish this, build a jetty out of wood near your new cistern. You must make sure that part of the jetty stands in the water so that your water carriers have access to the water. It might be necessary to rotate the jetty so that it can be set in the right position. You can click on the middle mouse key to do this. Now that the wooden jetty has been built, your water carriers have a place where they can obtain water and bring it to the cistern. If your water carriers don't begin to move toward the jetty, you might have to shift the working area for your cistern. This is because your settlers will only deliver water to your cistern when the source is located within the cistern's working area. However, the lakes in your surroundings are not the only source of water that's available to you. A well is able to pump groundwater out of the ground.
Oke.
Build a well and assign a well keeper to have another source of water. Your settlers are also able to supply themselves directly from the well. However, a well doesn't have the same storage capacity as a cistern or a water tower. That's why I recommend that you place your wells in a cistern's working area, so that your water carriers can also retrieve water out of the well.
Oke, feelingku sih bakal agak panjang, jadi tak stop sampai sini dulu aja. Oke, taruhannya masih ada banyak. Food, confidence, radiation, barter studying, barter trading system, tutorial, expeditions, research. Wah, oke, jadi yaudah kita lanjut di pertemuan berikutnya. Terus kalau nututi kita aja mainkan skenario yang sudah disiapkan. Oke, yaudah, thank you guys. Thank you buat yang sudah nonton, buat yang sudah mampir. Kita ketemu lagi di video yang lain. Bye bye.